Kelsey?
Yes, Howard?
Oh, Kelsey.
Trying to do the YouTube through the Fire Stick tonight, so hopefully I won't regret that.
Kelsey, I would. Oh. I would say as long as you have reference to the comments, you shouldn't have to read them.
Okay. I think they'll probably be okay with that, as currently we're continuing to go along with what they had suggested. I have after 7. Do we have everyone there?
Yes, we do.
Okay. That I'll call this meeting to order. Mike, the roll.
Helwig?
Here.
Holland?
Here.
Humphrey?
Here.
Price?
Here.
Sorensen? Ward?
Here.
Wilson? Here. President Collier-Wise?
Here. We will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. Because of some of the interesting things with the Zoom meetings and the echoing that happens with that, I'll ask everyone to mute, and Steve will lead us tonight in our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on, we'll look for approval of the minutes from the April 20th special meeting and the April 20th regular meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Tom and a second by Howard. All in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Humphrey?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
Sorensen?
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson? Aye. President Collier-Wise?
Aye. Motion passes. Adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda, Mike or John?
No.
Move the agenda.
Second.
We've got a motion by Howard and a second by Julia. All in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Humphrey?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
Sorensen?
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
President Collier-Wise?
Aye. Motion carries. Visitors to be heard. Persons addressing the council shall use the microphone at the podium or send their comments through our YouTube station. Please raise your hand to be recognized, go to the podium, and state your name and address. Please identify yourself similarly if you are making a typed comment. For items not on the agenda, Members of the public may speak under visitors to be heard on any topic not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and no decision will be made at this time. For agenda items, public testimony will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the chair and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item. Public testimony will then be closed, and the topic will be given over to the governing body for possible action. At this point, only City Council members and staff may discuss the current agenda item unless a council member moves to allow another person to speak and there is unanimous consent from the council. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the presiding officer at any time. We would also suggest that if you have a comment on one of the agenda items, please consider submitting it at the beginning of that agenda item or even before we get to it, as there is some lag on the YouTube channel, and that allows us some time to get to it. So with that, is there anyone at City Hall that has a comment on something not on the agenda?
No, there's not.
Okay, turning it to the council, is there anyone that has something not on the agenda that they would like to share? Brian?
This is for John. I've been asked to inquire about the traffic study that was done on the corner of Cottage and Alumni and Cottage in Rice. It was last year or 2 years ago. How did that ever turn out?
So I dug out the information on that, Brian. We did 2 different traffic studies there. One is between July 17th and July 23rd of last year, either 23rd or 29th was the ending date on that. And they used a tolerance of 5 miles over before they determined speeding. And in that, they found 2.9% of the vehicles were speeding at that point in time, or during that study, I should say. Then they, over the next couple weeks or so, they did connect and they responded to 36 traffic stops in that area. They did some enhanced enforcement. A follow-up study was done between October 11th and October 23rd, so it spanned that 12-day period. During that time, using the same 5-mile-an-hour tolerance, they found 2.6% of the vehicles were speeding or were recorded as speeding by the radar system that was utilized. So that was the results of what that study showed in terms of speeding at that intersection of Cottage, Rice, and Alumni.
Anything else, Brian? Okay. Anything else from anyone on the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to, and we have no public hearings tonight, we'll be moving on to old business. Item 7A, review of ordinance 1413 and determine continuation of the emergency ordinance. And John?
Thank you. Just kind of give a brief recap, although I think most people are pretty familiar with it. 2 special meetings were held on March 24th and March 30th of this year, where the council reviewed, modified, and eventually adopted ordinance 1413. That emergency ordinance placed some restrictions on public gathering places, entertainment venues such as bars, restaurants, movie theaters, video, lottery, casino operations, in places of public accommodations such as hair and nail salons, barbershops, health clubs, spas, and so forth. With the second reading on March 30th, you did establish a fine of $56.50 for any sort of violation plus the court cost. As of the time we put the packet together last Friday, we had no establishments had received a citation for violating the ordinance that would put it into place, which is great, as we would hope would be the case. But as you know, for the City Council, the way this ordinance was written, each time you meet, either a regular meeting or a special meeting, Section 6 of that ordinance requires the City Council to review whether or not you want to continue any of the restrictions within that ordinance. The first 2 times, on April 6th and April 20th, there were no changes that were made. This is the third opportunity today to consider amending the ordinance with the adoption of a resolution that would specify any changes. I will say, since the last meeting, we've had considerably more comments than what we had received with either the first or second review of it. We received comments both ways, I would say, with regard to that. One of the items that has changed a little bit was on April 28th, Governor Nome issued Executive Order 2020-20, and that has led several of the first-class cities like Vermillion to make changes to their ordinance to become more in compliance with the executive order that was issued. Actually, all of the cities have either removed these restrictions, they've modified them, or they are, like you tonight, considering action on them if they had them in place to begin with. Over the last couple days, I know what we're going to do all day, every day, but I just don't know what nuance of COVID we're going to be dealing with. But over the last several days, it's been more the legal aspect, and in visiting with the city attorney, as well as an attorney for the city's insurance company, South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance. At that point in time, the option of suspending the closing restrictions was suggested as the avenue to pursue to be more in compliance with the executive order that was directed by the state. In the executive order, the governor does use language that says every South Dakotan shall, and the city shall take into in consideration the executive order that was drafted, is really what was kind of driving some of this language. It's important to note that what the council does tonight, if you do make a change, that does not require any particular business to open. That is still their choice. It would simply provide the opportunity for them to do so. This issue changes a lot, and we drafted your packet and put that together that you receive on Friday for tonight's meeting. We have in there a resolution which would repeal those restrictions to remain in compliance or to come into compliance with the executive order issued by the governor on April 28th. We're looking at Rapid City, and Brookings is considering a draft tonight that does have language which would provide some opportunities, or if you will, more of a slower ramp up, or more of a method to kind of work ourselves up to kind of opening things back up completely. So there's been a couple different iterations to that resolution tonight, and I think about 5 o'clock you received the latest update to that, and we'll continue to update that. I'm not sure, it is a relatively long list, so I don't know, Council President, if you would like me to work through what some of those exceptions are that were provided for the benefit of the public, or if you want to begin the discussion, and we can certainly answer the questions for you tonight. I would add, for those members in the room, they do all have or were provided the opportunity to receive a copy of the most updated version of the emergency resolution dealing with our emergency ordinance. That would include the language changes since last Friday, and I believe the council has also received that electronically as well. So I guess we'd be happy to answer questions, or I can certainly walk through those. I do know that this afternoon a couple of our council members participated in a forum, I guess I'll say, with provided through the VCDC, which kind of talked with some of our business owners about how do we work forward together to help keep the health and safety of everybody paramount while providing opportunities for them to conduct their business.
John, I think that it probably would be helpful, and especially for people at home, if you could just hit some of those bullet points. I know that kind of adds some length, but just so that they understand what we're talking about, I think that it would be helpful.
Sure. Okay. And I would also note, staff has pledged that whatever the council does tonight, we will put a copy of this up probably within an hour of following the meeting. It'll be on our city's website so people can take a look at it that way. So I'll just kind of hit a list of some of these here. It is kind of lengthy, but nonetheless will give you some idea of what it would do. So this ordinance would remove the restrictions on areas 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the emergency ordinance, which were those categories that I mentioned at the start of my comments who had restrictions on their operations through that emergency ordinance. A, would establish a minimum 6-foot distance between any tables, chairs, bar stools. This provision does not need to be observed between members of the same household. Item B, restaurant, bars, video, lottery, casino operations shall be limited to a maximum of 10 customers or a capacity of 33% of their maximum posted capacity, whichever is greater. C, all businesses will identify their occupancy allowance and post it in a conspicuous location for customers entering the building. D, all restaurants and bars shall dispose of or disinfect all menus before and after use by each customer. Condiment containers shall be cleaned or disinfected between each group and shall not be shared among multiple groups. Salad bars and self-service buffets shall not be permitted. E, recreation and fitness businesses shall limit customers based on available square footage, a maximum of 10 customers or a capacity of 33% of their posted capacity. F, encourage social distance spacing while waiting for service or entry into a business. Business businesses may accomplish this by requiring people to remain in their vehicles. G, install a plexiglass or similar divider where physically possible between the cashier and the customer. H, require employees to wash hands at regular intervals. I, food service employees must wear a mask when serving dine-in patrons, which covers the employee's nose and mouth. J, in video lottery casino operations, machines must be cleaned and disinfected between each customer. K, employees of hair salons, nail salons, spa, and barbershops must wear face masks which cover their nose and mouth during customer contact times. Customers must be seated at least 6 feet apart. L, in gyms and fitness facilities, any equipment and or exercise mats must be cleaned or disinfected between each use. Customers should be separated by at least 6 feet when using machines or equipment. M, customer seating in theaters and similar businesses shall be reduced for social distancing, with certain seats marked as not available due to social distancing guidelines to ensure compliance. N, businesses shall publicly post a regular cleaning and disinfecting schedule. O, hand sanitizer locations shall be readily available for public use at grocery and retail businesses. P, seating at large gatherings shall be reduced to comply with a 6-foot minimum distance between attendees. Q, businesses are encouraged to conduct daily employee screenings for illness. R, businesses are encouraged to post signage outside of the facility that encourages customers to not enter if they're not feeling well or have COVID-19 symptoms. S, businesses are encouraged to develop risk mitigation strategies for restrooms or other areas where social distancing requirements are likely to be compromised. T, certain businesses, for example, gym, recreational facility, video lottery, casino, etc., are encouraged to have customers wipe down their equipment machines before and after use. However, it will still be the responsibility of the business to ensure proper cleaning and disinfecting is occurring. And finally, U, businesses, particularly salons, barbershops, and spas, are encouraged to provide service on an appointment-only basis to ensure proper social distancing and hygiene practices are met. I submit that those are probably the highlights. I would add, I guess, one other item is that the exceptions in the original ordinance 1413, the exceptions provided in number 5 remain unchanged. And the rest of it's pretty generic language. I guess for the public who may not be as familiar with this, I'd also add that the way this is written, the ordinance lives until May 30th, as any emergency ordinance would. So if the council made a change tonight, in 2 weeks from tonight or next week you wanted to have a special meeting to address it, you would have the ability to place those restrictions back in place until the life of the ordinance expires on May 30th of this year.
Thank you, John. Do we have any comments from the public? Is there anyone in City Hall that is there to testify?
Anybody want to speak? I guess there's nobody wants to speak at this time, Kelsey.
Okay. Thus far, we don't have any comments on the station. If you do have a comment, please feel free to submit as we continue our discussion. And even though we're moving to the council section, we'll come back to those comments as they come in, if there are any.
I think Tom had a comment here.
Thank you. Madam President, may I proceed?
Yes, absolutely. And then there is a public comment afterwards, so
Okay,
go
thanks.
ahead.
I think it was a good idea for John to read those for the benefit of the public, because as I mentioned earlier today, we had very, very thorough and good discussion of some of these options at the noon meeting today in the other room, the conference room. And so we hashed out a lot of things, including, I think what we're going to try to make it, either there's an ordinance or we can try to ease ways for people who serve food to set up out in parking lots. Again, anything that this does needs to follow the safety guidelines, and that would be included as well. I spent much of the weekend on the phone and emails with a number of people, including citizens and including a number of medical doctors. Just quickly, I'll tell you that the first MD I spoke with said, "I am greatly concerned about the state of back to normal plan. The pandemic is raging fire out of control, getting closer to all of us in Vermillion. We are surrounded, as Tim Tracy said at our noon meeting, we are surrounded by counties that really have a lot more problems than we do. This particular doctor said Clay County is a vulnerable island surrounded by COVID. Logistically difficult and frustrating to get widespread testing in our city. Tim Tracy addressed some of the testing availability that will be forthcoming. Testing is imperative, the doctor said, because 25% of COVID patients have no symptoms but can still spread the disease. I strongly recommend," this is a quote, "that we leave the ordinance in place. It is effective through May, and changes can be made later if we have favorable data." That was one doctor. Another doctor said reopening businesses in Vermillion poses a big risk. There's a false sense of security simply because we have not had a case for a little while in Vermillion. But if 15 to 20% of people don't even look sick, and that's the false sense of security. That's why we have to follow these safety measures, because otherwise we are all put at risk. And a third medical doctor said businesses should be asked to create a mitigation plan that is reviewed by a group of local subject matter experts who are appointed. That would allow flexibility in individual businesses to propose actions that are practical for them in order to receive a seal of approval. I have a lot of other comments from citizens, and that's what I wanted to pass on here at a public meeting. And I think the only other question I have is we can call a special meeting if we need to, but otherwise we would wait till the next city council meeting in case something comes up that we need to change. Is that correct, Jim and John?
That's the way the ordinance is written, that was adopted, that you'll review it each time you have a regular meeting, and you can call a special meeting to review it.
Thank you.
Just going back to the public comments, Linda Alvey has asked about parks, and we discussed a little bit about city services today. John, would you be willing to address that?
Well, I guess Jim Goldrich, our Park and Rec Director, is in the audience here. He's contacted other cities to find out what they're doing. Some never closed their parks. Some did some limited closings, and then some closed them as well. What we're kind of finding is that we probably would reopen some aspects of our parks to provide that opportunity. So specifically with that part, we would have that aspect of it. We are looking at opening the recycling center for drop-off, not to have curbside, but to at least have the drop-off. Most of the people who bring the recycling out to the recycling center and drop it off have a very high accuracy rate of placing it in the appropriate container for that item, and so then it doesn't really have much human handling from there. It's pretty much handled by the machines that bail it. So that is one. As far as City Hall and the library, we would probably not be reopening those immediately, as we are providing service through both of those. Kudos to the library for, I think, some innovative ways in which they're serving our public that not every community got to enjoy during in the previous weeks. But we've set up mechanisms to work with the public and to through phones, either vestibule or email or phone calls, different ways that we can serve the public that way. So we probably would not initially be reopening those couple of buildings. Those are probably our highest trafficked buildings.
Other public comments, Caitlin Collier says, please keep as much social distancing as possible. Katie Beam says, what is the general state of testing in Vermillion? Do Vermillion restaurants and businesses have resources to test employees and servers? And I don't know if you want to talk about what we heard from Tim today, John, I know specifically the question was, I believe Rich asked the question, if restaurant workers and employees could be tested. And Tim Tracy did say that they don't have the capacity to just test people that aren't showing specific COVID-like symptoms. So there wouldn't be across-the-board testing. It would have to be through a primary care provider based on symptoms. The type of, I guess, screening that other communities are asking restaurants to do or encouraging them to do would be regular temperature tests and kind of asking them about symptoms. And I know that today on the kind of town hall that the VCDC organized, one of the businesses offered to the others that they actually have a form that can be used for that they would be willing to share.
Kelsey,
Yes, Howard.
at that meeting, the question was brought up with restaurants that it's very hard to find the masks right now or to purchase them. And so I was wondering, we didn't put any provision in. Are we saying that they have to have the masks available before they open up? So they have a choice to make. They either have to secure the mask or stay closed until they can secure it.
My reading of it, and John, if you could confirm on this, is that they would have to have the masks in place to do dine-in, but not to continue the current services that they're doing right now.
So they'd have to have them present, so they're gonna have to pay. And I know that same restaurant that offered the sheet said that they had found a source and were willing to share it with the other restaurants in town to get masks made.
That's correct. Another public comment, any word on summer recreation programs? So maybe it would be if Jim is available to talk about parks and recreation. It sounds like there's several questions about that, but.
Good evening, members of the council. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now. It's a tough situation for us to open registration. The program that we have to take the registration also includes the payment of that time that registration takes place. And for us to do that, we would feel more comfortable if we knew we were going to move forward and have some type of summer recreation programming. Otherwise, once registrations are taken, then refunds will need to be given from the city. Also with that, then the user then loses some money as far as the service fee that we have with the active programming. So we're a little conscientious about doing that quite yet. Internally, we have spoken, staff discussions have shared some of the programs that we could do by limiting class sizes and kind of working in those type of more safer environments. Some programs we are not going to be able to do right now. We do not have the cooperation or the partnership with the high school where we do some tumbling programs. We respect them, that they want to keep the people out of the facility. So we would not have some tumbling programs. Early Childhood Explorers, which takes place over at the Armory. It's a closed, tight environment over there where we've had 30 to 40 kids at any given time. We would probably not have that in respect to the size of the facility that we have, and with the National Guard. They've asked us to try and stay out of that building a little bit more in case they would get activated, and then they would have a lot of personnel in and out of the facility as well. So to get back with the summer programming, I kind of need some direction from you guys as a little bit how you want to proceed with that one. We are having weekly South Dakota Parks and Recreation Association meetings. What other communities are doing, as John mentioned, I think I have 6 different communities that I've called and spoke with today. Some of them do have their playgrounds and all their parks amenities open, and there's a few of them that don't. But for the majority of the Class A cities, they are open playgrounds. Sports fields are open for non-team activities, but they can do individual workouts on those, but no team activities or games. Some sports have been, baseball at least, has taken place throughout South Dakota already, but those are in smaller towns. I believe Lesterville just had a baseball game the other day there. So Again, that's kind of where I need direction from you guys, what you guys are feeling that we should move towards. Until then, we're not going to open up recreation programming. And the other, I guess, elephant in the room is what about the swimming pool? Because we would need probably a month, once given the go-ahead, to hire staff, which internally here is going to be a challenge without having the facility open where we could bring in people to do their paperwork and a few of those other things associated with hiring, train lifeguards, and get the facility open and ready to go. The facility and the water and the chemicals are the easy part. It's the staffing of it and the training of the pool in general. That's going to be the problem. Questions?
Julia?
Thank you, Jim. And really, I want to, I guess, reiterate what I said at the noon meeting to make sure that it's here out for the public as well. I want to encourage our city, which is not part of the ordinance, of course, but in looking for that direction, to say that I want us to be a role model. If we are expecting businesses and individuals to wear masks and do social distancing and close as much as possible, and from my perspective, where our hands are kind of tied. Many of us, I think, I would like to keep us more closed than this, but our hands are a bit tied with the governor's orders. And so I think it's really important for us as a city to act as role models and continue to keep our parks and recreational programs closed for now. I appreciate having regular meetings, and I appreciate that we revisit this item regularly so that we can give that direction on the summer programs. I think similar to what we're looking at in this ordinance, doing a gradual opening such as what you suggested with the smaller class sizes and things like that, maybe starting with those kinds of activities that are limited in number, things like that, that would, again, allow us to be more in line with what we're asking the public to do. I think it's really important. I do understand that we need a month for the pool. I think we still need some time to see, especially how this gradual opening goes. I think right now it's too early to make those decisions because we won't really know where the effect is if we're able to sustain this new amendments to the ordinance, if those are being helpful. So I would like to encourage us to wait as long as we can.
And excuse me to intersect here for a little bit.
Go ahead.
I'm okay with whatever council decides to do, but just nobody has the crystal ball that we all wish we had. The problem, one of the things that we're going to encounter is if you guys go ahead and say June 1st is a day or June 15th, whatever that date may be, we need to have the programming available to the public to register for, to see when the times are, to see how many people are going to be in the classes, and that kind of information for the public or the users that want to participate in that class. So we're going to need at least probably a 2-week lead time so individuals can sign up. Again, we offer a lot of programming and opportunities for people that need financial assistance and go through the DSS offices here and such like that. So we want to make sure that they have time to get the paperwork and the criteria that's listed to register for those classes, that they can do so to register for the class. So it's just one of those things we're just going to need. It's a tough situation. It really is. So we need to have the time, and then again, for any of those classes, we need to be able to hire those instructors or the personnel that needed to run those classes to do so. So we are going to need a little bit of lead time. And if we go too late in the summer, if you guys feel comfortable on August 1st to start doing this, we might run out of time as far as to get the staff needed to do so, because if the high school and college does start back up, we'll already typically be losing staff at that time. So again, not to put pressure on you, but I mean, we kind of need to see in the future a little bit, or at least take a solid guess on what direction we're going to go.
Other comments from the council? Brian?
If barbershops must wear masks, what would it take for tattoo artists or tattoo shops to open? Or are they already included in opening?
To my knowledge, tattoo shops were not included in the original ordinance.
Yes, that's
Because-
correct. They weren't included.
They were not included. Okay, thank you.
Howard?
Jim,
Yes?
if we revisited this on next council meeting, which is in 2 weeks, could it be, if everything goes well with this, that you could get up and running by, say, the 10th of June?
Yes, yeah, we could. We, again, internal discussion with staff, but we were thinking June 15th is a possible day where we could like to go for. Again, it's not ideal, but if we go June 15th, that would give us roughly a 6-week window to do some recreation programming, at least for the classes in part. Pool, we would love to be able to stay open, again, as we typically do through Labor Day, but I can't guarantee that right now. Everything's in flux as far as how many staff we can get. The Red Cross has put some leeway on lifeguard certification. If lifeguards were supposed to be certified through May and it ran out in May, they put a 90-day extension onto that one, so that would help us a little bit to keep some guards that might not have been possible to do so for the pool aspect. But yes, so to answer your question, yeah, we could do it then to get that direction and kind of get the information out online, give us an opportunity to hire staff, and then advertise the programs and how we're going to move forward with said programs.
Steve? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Howard, and we'll go to Steve.
Jim, will you be reviewing this in the next couple of weeks, that you could keep with email, you could keep the council updated as to how the staff is feeling about it and what's going on, so that we'd be able to make a fairly quick decision on the next meeting?
I can do that. I can work through Mr. Prescott as well to kind of disseminate that information from you. And again, we're just not flying solo here. The National Park and Rec Association, the South Dakota Park and Rec Association, we're all working together in this because our community is not like any others that has, these are the same questions in all the communities. So we're trying to do the things that are the safest for our members, yet provide services. Again, the reason I'm here is just much like everyone else that's getting phone calls and emails and texts and such like that, we're getting a little push from the community as well as you guys have seen, Sioux Falls Parks and Rec is completely open. Everything is running, dog parks and playgrounds, skate parks and whatnot. And they were perceived as one of the hotter spots, I guess, for the virus. And now they've opened up, and how come we're not? And again, I say that's a council decision, and I'm going to let you guys make that. But just so you understand that we're getting the questions from the sports associations and the general public as well.
Steve?
Thank you. I have a question from Doug Peterson on Lewis Street, I think, in Vermillion. He was unable to get on YouTube, so he texted me the question. His question was, is the city's goal to keep COVID infections at bay as long as possible, or to stay within the limits that the Vermillion healthcare system can manage? And secondly, what are the parameters where gradually opening up is accepted?
Does anyone want to take that on based on our discussion earlier today?
Well, I can start, and then you all can join in. I think from our discussion this afternoon, Tim Tracy indicated to us that our healthcare system can handle a peak, which he is expecting this month. And but the sense of the council was that we need to keep the virus at bay for a while longer and gradually open up over time, and that's more of a priority right now because we do think the healthcare system could handle whatever comes down. I think Tim also suggested that we were surrounded by hotspots and that those pose a concern, should pose a concern to us if if we open up too immediately to the greater public. And then parameters for gradually opening up, I think what we're looking at is, COVID spread in our neighborhood, our region of the state, and our, in our local community. And I think we're going to be monitoring that. And if we don't see spread, then we will continue to gradually open up. So that was my takeaway. If others have different impressions, chime in.
And we specifically talked about some of the parameters that the White House has put out for reopening, the different phases that James shared with us, and kind of the different things that would have to be met in order to move into the next phase. The governor's order doesn't take some of those things into account, so we're trying to balance between those two suggestions, I guess. We had another comment about playgrounds. Caitlin Lindsay says, so can my child yet go out to the playgrounds to burn out some pent-up energy? This is taking as much toll on our young children as adults. And so Jim sort of alluded to that. Personally, I think that we should at least keep the current playgrounds closed off until our next meeting. Again, with what we know about when the peak is and everything we know about those particular surfaces being especially easy to transfer things, I would rather wait another 2 weeks before making that decision personally. But Julia?
I would agree with that, and I want to go back to what Jim was saying about looking at mid-June, thinking about dates. We had initially set this plan to expire end of May, and so now we're being forced to make these amendments. And so we'll have 2 more meetings. We'll have one mid-May, we'll have one early June. And so I think that gives us some time to look at these issues again. And I think if with this gradual opening, if we still stay around the same pattern or low increasing, I think we'll be okay to start opening the playgrounds, or at least looking at opening the playgrounds in about 2 weeks, and doing those recreational activities in about mid-June. But we can make because of the way this ordinance is written, we can make these amendments fairly quickly. And so I'm hoping that if we can wait for that next meeting to do that, I think that would help a lot. That will allow us to see what happens with this opening of other businesses first.
Kelsey, I think Tom had a question.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Tom, and then we'll go to another public comment.
Thank you. Is there a way, or can anyone tell us how we are going about monitoring? We wait for reports from the state, I guess, but we're doing well, and we want to keep doing well around Vermillion and Clay County, but how do we know whether or not a spike is starting because of the reports out of Pierre or out of Washington or out of the CDC? Whom do we follow?
We don't get any advance or any additional information than what's made available on the South Dakota Department of Health's website. That's the only access we have. Tim Tracy in our comments today gave you some insight there, but otherwise we don't receive any additional information.
That seems to be one of the major concerns of the several MDs I talked to, that false sense of security. So I guess, and again, at least 2 out of 3 of those say we should just hang on until May 30th. But I said this at noon too. In a democracy, we are supposed to question leaders. Criticizing a governor or a president or a city council member is okay in a democracy. So it is not politics to do that. Now, that said, it seems to me that the buck has gone from high up to states saying, fix this. And now states are saying, okay, locals, it's up to you. And the word liability finally came up at our noon meeting by the city attorney, because nobody above us wants any liability. So here it is, it's on our plate. I think we need to think about things like that as we decide what to do. Thanks.
Kelsey, we cannot hear you here at City Hall.
Sorry, I'm muting and unmuting too much so that I don't create feedback, but I'm going to read a few more of the public comments, and then I'll turn it back to the council. I know that this isn't the smoothest way to do it, but again, just because of the delay, it's difficult to make sure that everybody gets their chance to get their public comments in. Probably after this, we will be turning things over to the council for discussion, as we've had some ample time to get those comments in. So Ailey John says, if you don't have insurance or PCP, how would you access a test? Caitlin Lindsay says, could you maybe utilize city employees to do sanitation on the playground, keep social distancing, maybe limit hours at the playgrounds? Mary Duncan says, are local clinics testing those who have not been to China or have not been in direct contact with a COVID positive individual? Concerned with opening if testing is refused for those symptoms. Returning to the matter at hand, is there other council discussion?
Kelsey, if I may add a comment.
Yes, John.
When we were working through this, as the council knows, we kind of borrowed heavily from Brookings' language here. And as I was reading it, I noticed item O, which reads, hand sanitizer locations shall be readily available for public use at grocery and retail business. Since our original ordinance did not address grocery and retail businesses, we tried to remove all those references. I missed this one. So if you're looking at adopting this, I would respectfully request you take out O, because this would be using a resolution to place a restriction or a procedure on a business which was not in the original ordinance. Sorry about that.
Okay. Steve?
On item P on the list, says in large gatherings, people need to be 6 feet apart. Does that contradict what's in, I think, section A or B early in the list? Why is that section there?
With respect to P as in Paul, I have to tell you that was language we took from Brookings that I'm not sure that I could completely explain that one. I think A does a much better job and establishes a much more understandable standard for our community, for our businesses, our restaurants. I'm not sure if P was related to if there's potentially a reception or something like that. I really can't explain too much on P.
I was thinking maybe it'd be worth striking.
Julia?
Is that maybe related to movie theaters? Although that would be included.
They've got their own section.
Yeah, okay. I would suggest taking out O and P then. I agree with Steve.
Other comments from the council? Brian?
I really like how we're gradually doing this from the 33% occupancy rate on up, just depending on how well it goes. Because like was already said, we can always adjust that to the end of May. So I really like it, how we're starting slow, because we have to. But I would just, rather start slow and then work our way up. So I kind of like that idea, and I'd like to thank Matt from the VP or the VFD, who kind of was in charge of that part. So thank you guys.
Absolutely, thanks, Brian. I guess I would just like to comment that, you know, and we really went through this in depth today at noon. We didn't necessarily know what our options were after the governor's order came out. And the executive order really put us in a position where, according to our city attorney and other attorneys representing our insurance, that we would not be able to continue the ordinance as is. That would have been my personal preference, this ordinance stay in place till the end of May. I think that would have been the safest way to operate for our community. And I can say that my support of the current resolution is only because we don't have the option of keeping what is in place. But I think that this at least puts something in, and as Brian said, as a gradual way of addressing reopening that hopefully will keep more people safe. But it definitely requires citizens and businesses and city government to work together and really continue to hold the line in social distancing, hand washing, mask wearing. That was something that Tim Tracy emphasized, along with donating blood, that mask wearing is incredibly important to keep people in our community safe. So I hope that we can, even though we're not able to continue the ordinance that we originally put in place, that we'll be able to hold the line by uniting around those important pieces. Anything else from council? And if not, I would entertain a motion, perhaps with some of the sections stricken that were mentioned. Rich?
Yes, in the history I've been with this city council, this is probably the most discussed over many, many departments, and I really appreciate everybody's input. I think I think it's the best compromise we can do, and I'd like to move approval of this ordinance with the exception of eliminating O and P, since they appear to be redundant.
Kelsey, this is
Yes,
James
James?
at City Hall, if I might interject. We have a question from the public.
Can we get a second and then take the question? Is that?
Yeah. It was just about the 10 customers capacity for the restaurants.
Yep, go ahead.
But so it says maximum of 10 customers or 33%. So is it maximum if your capacity is more than 10? If it matching the 33%. So at most you can have 10 in the business.
It's whichever is greater.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I had a number of seconds. Mike, did you get a person for the second?
No, I didn't.
It was Brian.
It was Brian, okay.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got motion by Rich, a second by Brian. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please indicate approval at the roll.
Helwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen,
Nay.
Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
President Collier-Wise.
Aye. Resolution passes. Thank you all, and thank you especially to city staff for the tremendous amount of work and continual revisions that you had to do on this. It's not easy. Moving to our next agenda item, I'm going to hand over direction of the meeting to Vice President Rich Holland.
Thank you, President. Before I get into this, I do not have access to YouTube nor complete access to City Hall. So I'll ask if there's move for appointment or suggestions for our new mayor, that I ask if there's anybody in the audience there, at City Hall, or James, do you have access to YouTube?
Yes, I
Somebody
do.
should. Okay, let's allow a few seconds in case there's any input from either one of those, and we'll go on to the council. There's no one in the audience at City Hall?
Nope, we've got no one here wishing to comment at this time.
James, anybody that you can see on YouTube?
No, not regarding this topic.
Thank you. So then I would move to accept a motion or, pardon?
I'd like to nominate Kelsey as our new mayor, because she's been doing a very excellent job of taking care of the council during this rough period of time.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ward. Is there discussion prior to voting? Yes, Julia.
I just want to reiterate what Howard says. I'm not sure that much of public is aware, and I know many people are tuning in today, so it might be worth saying that our council president has really taken on quite a bit of work and has really shown her leadership in the past few months as Mayor Jack was becoming more ill over the past few months. And so I really want to thank her for her leadership in this time, and I would support the nomination that Howard suggested.
Yes, Jack. Steve, go ahead.
I'd also like to voice my support for Kelsey. She's involved in every aspect of city life, deeply involved in the BCDC and, of course, her own work through helping people who are underprivileged in our community, and has been someone I've looked to for help in understanding the intricacies of the policies that we review here on council, and her law background has been extremely helpful to all of us in helping approach some difficult topics. So I think she has the skills and background to make a good mayor.
Yes, Brian.
This was kind of a tough decision, but since Kelsey is the president, it goes in order from mayor, president, vice president. So just from that aspect only, I agree that Kelsey should become mayor. So I'm voicing my support for Kelsey.
I see no other comments at this point, so the motion was made and it was seconded. Are we ready for a roll call vote, Mike?
Yes, I can go forward.
Please do.
Helwig?
Aye.
Humphrey?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Vice President Holland?
Aye.
It was 6-0.
Thank you very much. I suppose the next thing I should do is ask Kelsey for to appoint someone to your position. No, you have to resign first, don't you? Please, from city council. Not please resign, but please proceed to the next step.
So I guess the next step would be that I would resign my position as Central Ward representative at this time. And John, is it your understanding that we will then open that position up and appoint someone at a later meeting?
That is correct. So to be eligible, you do need to be a resident of the Central Ward and a registered voter in the Central Ward. The time on when the council wants to do that is something that you can set. I would suggest it's your call that, like people serving on boards or commissions, perhaps you want to have them fill out an expression of interest form, a resume, background letter. I would think it'd be helpful for the council to have some information about individuals, because as a group, you'll be appointing this individual, and outside of the Central Ward, you may not be as familiar with some of the residents. You may or may not know them if that's not your particular ward. You could do it as soon as the next meeting if you'd like. We would just ask that whatever the council does, that you would have them turn it in by 5 p.m. on the Thursday before that meeting, so we can get those materials put together and placed in your packet, so you'd have the time to review it over that weekend.
Are there any thoughts on the next meeting or waiting longer?
Excuse me for interrupting, Mayor.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. It would be worth noting that the individual, since your term was set to expire with the first meeting in July of this year, the person you appoint, their term would go from when you appoint them until that meeting, and then the council that is seated the first meeting in July would appoint an individual. So I guess somebody could serve a month or two term, or they could serve a couple of months knowing that they would go a year before they would then be up for election for the balance of the 3 years.
Okay, so maybe that's something we decide at the next meeting.
Kelsey, before you assume all these things, I still have a little bit of business to do.
Okay,
I need a motion, please, to accept Kelsey's resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Julia, seconded by Catherine. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please. Mike?
Helwig,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen, Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Vice President Holland.
Aye. Next step?
You ready?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Howard.
You ready for the oath of office? Whoops, I'm sorry. Howard had something.
Yes, please.
So, the oath of office, I was wondering if you need to give her the oath of office to swear in.
Thank you, Howard. You're faster than I am. That's the next step. Yes, please. Mike, would you please give the oath of office?
Kelsey, would you repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Kelsey Collier-Wise,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of mayor
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of mayor
of the City of Vermillion, South Dakota,
of the City of Vermillion, South Dakota,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mayor Kelsey, and I now turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. That was a very weird way for that to happen, but thank you all for your support. It means a lot to me. My understanding is that as I was council president, we will need to fill that position as well. Is that correct, John?
That is correct. And again, this term of council president would go from now until the first meeting in July when you have a reorganizational meeting.
I would accept nominations.
I'd move to nominate Rich from vice president to president position.
Second.
We've got a motion by Julia, a second by Steve. Before we vote on it, Rich, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we weren't doing it against your will.
Not at all.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen?
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise?
Aye. Motion carries. Now that Rich's position is vacated, I suppose we have to fill that one too, correct?
Correct.
All right. I would open for nominations.
I nominate Steve if he wants to do it.
Sure.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Catherine, a second by Rich. And it sounds like Steve said, oh, he's okay with it.
I am okay with it. I'm thrilled.
At least for 3 meetings. All right, all those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Humphrey?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
Sorensen?
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, that was a procedural situation for the books, I think. Thanks to everyone for your work. Is there anything else, city staff, before we move on to our next item?
I just want to clarify, you want to have as an agenda item to establish the process to fill the Central Ward seat on the next agenda, correct? I didn't want to misadvertise it, or did you want us to start advertising?
We should probably have it as an agenda item so we can figure out the timing.
Okay.
Right, because there is some confusion about when they would start and how long they would serve that we should probably give a little bit more discussion to. Does that sound okay?
That's fine. We just want to make sure we understood the council direction.
If that's what sounds good to the rest of the council, I think that makes the most sense. Thank you, John. Our next item is appointment to the Library Board of Trustees. The board has 5 positions, 2 of which came open. We had quite a few people indicate interest, which was wonderful. Sometimes we don't see that many people turn in applications. And so I polled the city council as to their preference, and the consensus was to reappoint Greg Redlin to another term and appoint Alexis Oskelkoff to the other term. So if I could have a motion to approve those.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Julia, a second by Catherine. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Humphrey?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
Sorensen?
Okay.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise?
Aye. Motion carries. And John, you guys will let those folks know.
Yes.
The next item is appointment to the Human Relations Commission. In this case, we had 2 open 3-year terms, 1 one-year term, and 1 term for 1 year for a post-secondary student. Again, we had a lot of applications, and in tallying what folks wanted, the appointments were Brenda Fergan for one of the 3-year terms, Gerald Utrenka for the other 3-year term, Jordan Bonstrom for the 1-year term, and Cody Lee Friedman for the 1-year post-secondary term. Did I say the right number of people, John?
Yes. And thank you for which one goes where. I appreciate that.
Okay. I had quite a chart going for everybody. So if that is acceptable to the council, I would entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Got a motion by Catherine and a second by Howard. All those in favor? All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen, Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all, and thank you all for getting back to me on your preferences. Our next item is amendment to number 2 on work order for design and repair options, or for design of proposed shared use path repair options. And Jose?
Thank you. As you may recall, we're trying to work with the state and get this project figured out and buttoned up. Before we get there, we have to get the project surveyed and designed and work with some of the property owners and so forth. Back in, just so you guys realize, we have been working with this particular step of the project since 2018. Since then, we have either come up with options and presented those options to the property owners to see how they want us to go. After all those conversations that we had with the property owners, we went and brought them up all of those findings that we had in comments. We brought those up to the City Council at a November 2019 noon meeting. After that noon meeting, the Council's consensus was essentially to direct staff that the shared use path to place a shared use path rather than along the river, to move it closer to Broadway between the curb and the property line, and work with one of the property owners, Nutrien Solutions, to see if it would be possible to place a path along the south and west property lines of their property. Doing this would move the path away from their weight scale, and it would also require the city to reduce the amount of land that would be acquired. Essentially, the original plan was to go along the river from point A over here to right up here. Another option that we were discussing at that point was to start again, same location, and then just bring it up, there you go, an unused right-of-way that we have right now. If I remember right, it's Moore Street. And then once we get to Broadway, just go along the south side of Broadway. Due to some of the issues as far as the way that Nutrien utilizes their property, they do have a weight scale right about here. And they foresee a lot of issues or possible conflicts between the users of the bike path and the truck scale itself. So in conversations with Nutrien, we have been talking about possibly moving the trail to their south and west property lines, and then tying it back up here and going on our merry way to West Street, way over there. Doing this, however, that dashed line, doing that change would essentially require us to amend the original agreement that we have with Banner in order to complete it. This original agreement with Banner was approved by the City Council on January 15th, 2018. That agreement allowed Banner to complete the construction plans based on the idea that the shared use path would be along the river. As I mentioned, these were supposed to be completed on July 1st, 2018, and construction completed by no later than January 1st, 2020. As you know, this never occurred for various reasons, and the city was required to request for an extension from the DOT. This extension was granted on December 6, 2019. That's actually amendment number 1. And essentially it extended the deadline for construction to December 31st, 2024, which is a pretty big extension. Amendment 2, which is what's in front of you guys right now or for you to consider, will cover the cost of the additional survey needed to complete the design based on the City Council's direction back in November of 2019. We have asked Banner to acquire the survey. The survey would be needed along one of the properties in order to design the shared use path. The costs associated with the work order to be paid by the DOT through federal grant received by the city in 2006. This cost just for work order number 2 would be an additional $4,200, bringing the total to $18,491.92. Administration recommends that the City Council approve and sign amendment number 2 for the design of the shared use path along Vermillion River.
Kelsey, Tom has a question.
I just simply want to say it's been a long time since January 2018. It's been fits and starts, but by golly, we're proceeding. I move approval of the recommendation.
Second.
We've got a motion by Tom, a second by Julia. Is there any other discussion from the council? Julia?
Just a quick question for Jose. Isn't Nutrients the one who are considering moving? Would they not be moving that scale?
I don't know if they're actually going to be moving that scale. There's going to be a new scale over there. I just don't know if it's going to be this one or a new one.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please indicate your approval at the roll.
Helwig?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Humphrey? Price?
Aye.
Sorensen?
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise?
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Our next item, resolution fixing the time and place for a hearing and notice of hearing on the special assessment roll for installation of street lighting along West Main Street west of Stanford Street. And Shane?
Thank you. Back in October 21st, 2019 meeting, Council approved a resolution adopting a resolution of necessity for the streetlights along West Main Street, west of Stanford Street. Since that meeting, work has been out for bids, and the work has actually been completed, and final payment has been authorized. The special assessments were calculated and were filed with the finance officer on April 27th of 2020. Per state statute, the city is required to hold a public hearing to allow any of the affected property owners a place to discuss any concerns regarding the assessed values. The property owners to be assessed will be notified by mail, and the public hearing notice will be published in the Plain Talk. The construction cost for this project was $10,045.60. This assessable value, it didn't have the 8% administrative fee, so with that fee added, the total is $10,849.23. Administration recommends approving the resolution to set a hearing date of June 1st, 2020 for the special assessments roll for the street lighting improvements on West Main Street, west of Stanford, and provide for publication of notice of hearing as well as the mailing notice to the listed property owners.
Great, thank you, Shane. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to this?
No, there's none.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Humphrey?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
Sorensen?
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is 2020 to 2024 capital improvement plan. And John?
Thank you. This is an item that you look at each year. We propose a capital improvement plan which kind of recaps what we're going to do this year as well as for the next couple of years. It's the starting of our budget process as we begin the discussion to work through items that may be included. It was a little bit different this year with the COVID situation. As you saw when we presented the draft to you, we did mark some items in red that will be paused for this budget year until we see what the financial impact is. And we've also identified some items not in here, but as a staff we're going to look at when we get to the budget discussions this summer to look at what 2021 will be reasonable and feasible to do. I would note that a couple of the exciting projects that we're looking at for 2021, which are right now would advance on for your discussion during the budget process. One is our downtown streetscape plan. That's been a project we've talked about for a number of years. There's just over $2.5 million that's coming from 3 different funds with respect to how we would finance that project. The South Dakota Highway, the drainage ditch project that Jose and SEH have been working on for a while to develop a proposal to piggyback on the state's work when they are working in the bypass around the north part of the community next year. Right now that's estimated about $1.5 million. They're still working on some numbers for that. Pavement treatments and maintenance, that's our chip seals, overlays, surfacing, things like that. We have proposed right now $157,500 in that line item. Light and power, as well as our water staff, have been working diligently for the AMI meter conversion, and that's certainly proven its benefit in lots of ways, particularly with ons and offs of electricity with the COVID situation, some of the reduced access or meter readings that way. So next year would be year 4 of our 5-year plan to complete that work in the city at a cost of $295,000. Prentice baseball field, this would be working in the outfield. A couple years ago, I believe it was 18, I think it was, maybe 19. It was that we worked on the infield. This would be the second half of it, the outfield renovations. That's proposed for about $220,000. The wastewater treatment plant, the ultraviolet system, basically one of the final steps before we discharge that water into the river, we need to upgrade that, and it's just kind of worn out. It treats a whole lot of water going through there. That's about a $200,000 cost. Every year we budget library materials. There's about $92,000 of library materials will be part of the 2021 plan. And then another one of the higher items is our public safety radio replacement and upgrades. That's to make them the new system the state has. This is a 5-year plan we proposed to council a couple years ago. I believe next year is year 4 of that. The items in our capital improvement plan are larger items. They are at least $500 or more. They're not maintenance agreements or things that will have a lasting impact. Just a reminder, most of our equipment is not listed in here because we have the Wise Council many, many years ago, probably about 30-some years ago, set up our equipment replacement fund. And so we have that process, which you're familiar with, which basically we pay rents in there. And so equipment replacement is a separate plan that you look at budget time. So that is not included other than for joint powers because of our shared arrangement with Yankton. That equipment is not part of joint powers. The numbers in red are numbers that are items that are paused or potentially canceled for this year as we evaluate the financial impact. The numbers in the red boxes at the bottom, this is pointed out to me, I should have clarified this earlier, with the numbers are technically white, but they're in a red box. Those are departmental totals, so we're not coming up with that level of savings. I think it'd be Houdini if I could make that happen, but those are just the totals for those respective areas. So we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the capital improvement plan.
Is there anyone in the audience that is there to comment on the capital improvement plan?
No, there's none.
Okay. Rich?
Thank you. A couple of things, well, several actually. I looked at your list, John, and you were talking about the things you're looking at, one of them being the drainage ditch. The question I have with that's a state issue. By us postponing or changing that, would it affect their participation? In other words, would we lose money from them or time if we delayed that? That's the drainage ditch, so
Okay.
probably Jose would answer that.
Yeah, that is a project, and Jose can speak to that. If I understood your question, that's one we kind of have to there's advantages to us going along with the ride, doing the work at the same time they're doing their project. There are potentially some cost savings there. I know Jose's been in discussions with the state about what is our share, what would be their share, but it is most advantageous for us to do that at the same time they're doing the project. We have had no hints or indications that they will be moving that back from 2021. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. You said basically if we cut that one back, we could stand to lose more money in the future. Ultraviolet system, is it good, is it working currently? I mean, if we postpone that, are we jeopardizing sanitizing our sewer water as it goes into the creek?
Shane is in the audience here, so I'm going to let Shane Grease, our utilities manager, best answer the question, but it is currently working.
It is currently working. The issue that we're running into is that it's aged and it's starting to get harder and harder to find some of the boards with it. Like any technology, it advances so fast that it starts to become obsolete after a while. We're at that point to where we're getting a harder time finding replacement parts for the UV system.
Thank you. I guess that's working. Okay, the public, the library. I hate to penalize those people for doing such a great job during this difficult time. And the 92,000 is just their standard operating costs. I would really not like to see that cut back because that restricts them and puts them behind a year forever. So that's just a comment on that one. The public safety radio, if we postpone that, we still will be able to be within communication with everything, right? We're not losing communication or anything like that by postponing that?
No, and I guess just on those two items, we're not proposing to postpone or pause, or we didn't cut into library materials that way. I think credit to the library board in putting together the 2020 budget. There was some increased staffing they wanted, particularly with our youth program, and they did make I want to say $2,000 adjustment to their number this year, and then I think they were holding that, or they were decreasing the increase for next year. I don't remember off the top of my head, to help fund that part of it. So we weren't proposing any changes to their materials for next year. And then the second part on the radios, yes, they're still operational, but there is I'm going to call it a digital conversion, I guess, or the state is switching systems, and so by 2022 or 2023, you have to have your radios compliant with their new system. And so we started a process to kind of divide it into fifths, our needs, and try to balance out what that is. So we might be able to delay that 1 year if need be, but there is a cutoff to when we have to have had that change made by the state. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Thank you. And the last comment is, and this applies, our second penny, we've done very well with it over the years, and we've got a bit of a surplus. I don't want to take it away, but I really would like to stress that we try to keep as many people employed as possible. In other words, our cuts, our cutbacks, so forth, I would not like to see them be people or benefits to people at all possible, especially in this time where everybody's already suffering some. So if we couldn't, we look at these things, look at things that would delay an activity, not cost us more, and not cost us jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Are there any other comments on the capital improvement plan?
Thanks to the staff for all your hard work.
Yes.
It's our pleasure.
If there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion to adopt the plan.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion by Catherine and a second by Howard. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Hellwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item is Tom Street Lift Station Facility Plan Agreement. Shane?
Thank you. Back in 2014, an assessment was performed on the Tom Street Lift Station, which was installed in 1975. That assessment looked at the upstream and the downstream sewers as well to determine their capacities and their conditions, and to assess their ability to serve the flow that was going to be coming from the Bliss Point addition. At that point, the Bliss Point addition is just getting underway, and it was kind of unknown in how soon that would really develop, would fill out and start to put some load on that lift station. Due to the age of the lift station and the condition of the lift station, the assessment estimated a replacement between 2025 and 2035. Recommendations were made for full replacement as well as improvements that could potentially add 10 to 20 years to the life. Those improvements were estimated to be about 30% the cost of a full replacement. Because of that, and because of the current layout of the existing lift station, full replacement at a later date was kind of the suggested option and the route that we kind of took. As the city plans for full replacement of the lift station in 2021, we need to have a facility plan performed. The facility plan will evaluate the current condition and the capacity of the lift station, utilizing some of that data that was collected in 2014 and updating other parts of that assessment. That facility plan meets all state requirements, and it allows the city to apply for loans and grants, funding to assist for those improvements. The agreement has been attached for you guys' review. Banner Associates has given a proposed cost not to exceed $14,000 to perform the facility plan. This costs have been budgeted for by the Wastewater Department. Administration recommends approving the agreement with Banner Associates in the amount of not to exceed $14,000 for the facility plan.
Is there anyone in the audience that looks like they want to talk about the lift station?
No, we have none.
Okay. Turning it to the council, is there any discussion?
Move approval, Wilson.
Second, Elwig.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye, wouldn't work.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen, Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Shane. One second. I have like 7 screens going right now. Bid openings. Mike, do you have the fuel quotes?
Yes, fuel quotes received. The first one's from Brunick Service for 44,350 gallons of unleaded gasoline with 10% ethanol, $1.20. Item 2 is unleaded gasoline, $1.35. Item 3 is number 2 diesel fuel dyed, $1.15. Number 4 is number 2 diesel fuel clear, $1.40. Second quote was from Jerry's Service on 1, $1.29. Item 2, $1.39. Item 3, $1.38. Item 4, $1.68. The third quote was from Stern Oil on item 1, $1.18.88. Item 2, $1.38.35. Item 3, $1.22.03. And item 4, $1.50 and 0.3 cents. Looks like Stern Oil was low on item 1. Brunick Service was low on 2, 3, and 4.
We take the low bids.
Second.
Got a motion by Steve and a second by Catherine to approve the low bids. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise.
Aye. Motion carries. City Manager's report, John.
I think the days of instant technology are probably panning out the same way they are for you as it is for me, is my phone is blowing up with emails and text questions, as I think several council members are, and I probably should have covered that better in the presentation on the resolution making changes to Ordinance 1413. But just as when you adopted the second read of the ordinance, it became effective immediately, the resolution also becomes effective immediately. So the resolution you adopted earlier this meeting has become effective through adoption. So to clarify that, that resolution is now in effect, and I'm sure the fire department staff will be happy to help you with calculations, or code staff help with calculations regarding the percentage of occupancy. A couple meetings that we do have this week, 3 different of our commissions or boards. Our Historic Preservation Commission will meet at 9 a.m. on this Wednesday. The Human Relations Commission meets at 7 p.m. on Thursday, and bid board number 1 meets at 8 a.m. on Friday morning. And those would all be available for individuals to participate via Zoom or I think they're all using the Zoom platform. But we'll have the information available on those respective agendas. Curbside recycling does remain paused. As I mentioned, we are looking at a possibility of opening the recycling center for people to drop off. I would note we had a question or two about this the last week. We do have 2 yard waste drop-off containers available in the community. So you mow your yard, you're raking up the leaves that hid in your window well over the winter, what have you. One is on Prentice Avenue on the off-street parking for the Prentice Park ball field. There is about a waist high for an adult drop-off facility. You can dump it over the ledge into that container. And the other one is in the Barstow parking lot along Dartmouth Street, so just east of the skate rink, be it ice or the roller skating type rink. We have both those available. It's not a council meeting in the first quarter of the year if I don't remind everybody to please, please, please complete the census. I didn't check the number this morning to see where we're at, but we do appreciate everybody taking 10 minutes to help Vermillion Clay County with our census numbers to complete the 2020 census. At your next meeting on May 18th, you will have a variance for a garage setback on Lewis Street. I think I apologize, I didn't bring that information with me, but you will have a public hearing to consider a variance for a garage setback. Those are all the items I have for tonight.
Does anyone have any other questions for our city manager?
I have a comment.
We got a comment
Go ahead.
from Tom.
I just want to say, as long as we're on sort of general things like this, a big thank you to the volunteers of the Vermillion Fire Department, EMS, for making some kids' birthdays lifetime memories. Thank you, guys and gals.
Definitely. Thank you, Tom. If there are no other comments, I'll move on to invoices payable. Are there any questions for Mike?
Move we pay our bills.
Second.
And a motion by Julia and a second by Catherine to pay our bills. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen, Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise.
Aye. Motion carries. We have no consensus agenda tonight, so
Move, we adjourn.
Second.
we've got a motion by Steve and a second by Tom to adjourn. All those in favor, please indicate at the roll.
Helwig,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Humphrey,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Sorensen, Ward,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Collier-Wise.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all for all of your time.